US imposing tariffs on the UK, including British steel. What should the UK government do to prevent further problems and to protect our industries?
Right, so unless you were on Mars yesterday, you will know that Donald Trump unveiled that kind of that board, didn't he, in the Rose Garden of the White House, with global tariffs of varying kinds across the globe. As has been mentioned already, the UK has a tariff of 10%. That means a tax of 10% on anything that we export to America. And that's on top of the 25% tariff on cars entering the US from the UK and also on steel and aluminium. MIMS. What should the government do to protect our industries, including British steel, and avoid more economic problems?
Well, according to the Prime Minister this week at PMQs, it was be calm and pragmatic. But frankly, I think we would have liked to have seen them getting on the planes as soon as they came in July to pick up the skeleton deal that we had previously under the previous Trump administration. Of course, Biden hadn't wanted to carry on, and of course other matters came into play. But frankly, it's been just sitting there waiting for several months. And we now, because of the Brexit dividend, it's not Labour that have got us the 10% hit.
Is it a dividend? I mean, that's just loads of countries got 10%, well, and they've not done Brexit.
Let's admit it's no better than Costa Rica or the Congo, but it's better than the EU. So, you know, in terms of the challenge that we've got, look, we need to get...
What an amazing sentence, thanks.
Literally, well, it's better than it's not better than the Congo. Okay, brilliant. I'm sure, you know. And again, I'll make the point I made every single time, which is that the money that we're losing because of Brexit is way more than the money we would have lost if we'd had the EU's tariff from the US. Like, it's simple maths. But then again, I understand that people on this panel might have a difficulty with that.
The carve-outs, we need to get the trade deal. We need to go back to those past negotiations. We had 8 statewide memorandums.
We need to get the trade deal that we failed to get in the, nearly decade since Brexit, the vote happened, and the years that you were in government after Brexit had actually happened, that you couldn't get the trade deal. But we need to get the trade deal. That's definitely going to happen this time, honest. Shiny, shiny.
Memorandum of understanding works. That was paused by the Biden administration. Labour never backed any of our trade deals, so they're going to have to start to work to get one themselves and make sure that they really use this opportunity to, you know, and I believe even free trade, to break down this complexity and make sure that the fact that Trump admires the UK, has a strong affection, we've got to give him more than a letter. We've got to give him the opportunity to freely trade with us, break down those.
We've given him that opportunity. We were literally doing that. We don't have a trade surplus. We had like minimum fucking tariffs and barriers and all the rest of it. And he's still fucking us.
We even got rid of our potential 2% tech tariff on Amazon and Facebook and all of these people at the digital services tax that we're going to be putting on. We got rid of that to appease them. We are now doing more welfare cuts instead, potentially to give even more tax breaks to these billionaire tech oligarchs. We went over there and shined his shoes, having that meeting, giving him the letter from the bloody king. Like, all we do is prostrate ourselves for the American empire, and they gave us nothing.
Literally nothing. It was of no benefit. We should have stood up for ourselves, not just on a moral and basic self-esteem level, but we should have done so just on the basis of it wasn't beneficial to us to not do so. We wouldn't have been in a worse situation at all if we put 20% tariffs on them. Ridiculous.
Barriers and not be dragged back to where we've been before, and make sure that our domestic entities, our farmers, make sure that we get the right deal for all of the sectors, because Trump admires Britain, we admire America, we know that we need to work closely with them.
No, we don't admire America.
What are you talking about?
We literally, all the polling says we don't admire America. The
No.
opinion of America has dropped off a cliff. And again, even in Nigel Farage's constituency of Clacton, when they were asked would they rather have closer trading with the EU or with America, they said the fucking EU by like a country mile as well.
Yeah.
Particularly when geopolitically things are so difficult. So it's time for Labour to roll up their sleeves, get out there and get a deal.
Oh,
Can we
God,
deal-
can we stop with this rolling up sleeves stuff? None of you are Churchill. You're all shit. They're all trying to be like, it's that poster, right? The Churchill rolling his sleeves up, marching, that thing, right? They're all trying to play a blinder.
Literally, like Tony Blair used to like Q&As for the election with like a no tie and rolled up sleeves. Pathetic.
Yeah. Oh, God, it's all performative wank.
With this issue of because the tariff on the UK is less than Europe, we should somehow be celebrating and thank this supposed Brexit dividend, which has cost us billions and billions of pounds, of course. I agree with the commentators, I think journalist Will Hayward, who said it's a little bit like hiding behind the playground bully because your mate's been thumped harder than you have, so you're thankful for that. We're all suffering because of this, and you need to stand up to bullies. You have to stand up to economic
So what
bullies.
would you do?
And
Get on the plane and talk
the
to
way
them.
to
That's
deal
what
with
we
that,
haven't done.
and the way to stand up is together. Now, I'm a proud European and always have been, and now is the time, surely, to be building those links again with our European partners. My party believes, as do I, that being in the customs union and the single market
If America wants to isolate themselves, let them isolate themselves.
Yeah.
We have much better and more profitable trading relationships with our very, very close neighbours than we will with somebody all the way across the Atlantic Ocean. And and there are plenty of other countries that want to get involved as well. China and Canada and places like that, and even Canada wants to get in with South Korea and Japan. Like, there is so much room to isolate America and show the bully that if you want to be a dickhead, we'll kick you out of the clubhouse.
Well, exactly, yeah. A united front is what's needed. And we've got in Europe, just on our doorstep, and we've got the Commonwealth, which, again, isn't necessarily that massive, but it all helps. We've got the potential to have a sizable block of nations that say, no, fuck this noise.
What's crazy is that the two main people who are talking in this pro-Atlanticist tone outside of Labour, who are doing it just essentially out of commitment to the bit, are the Tories and Reform UK, and they always tell everyone else, "Oh, we're the proud patriots standing up for Britain," and they are literally the opposite. They're trying to make us become even more of a vassal state of the American empire that we already are, totally destroying our international standing and essentially making us an extension of the 51st state. Like, how much more of an anti-patriot could you be than to be more loyal to Donald Trump in America than to your own citizens?
Yeah. Again, I think I'm with you. The current government is acting in a frankly traitorous manner.
Yeah, I agree. Yep.
surely should be something
20%
that we do now, because Trump says he wants fair trade, free trade and fair trade. I don't believe him. He is a transactional president who believes that somebody has to win and somebody has to lose. But I tell you, nobody is going to win in this trade war that he has instigated. And we have to stand together with our European partners in particular in order to help our business.
So that might include retaliatory tariffs. So us putting tariffs on American produce. Is that something you would support?
The UK is very, very weak and isolated currently. Now, there's talk...
No, but can I ask you, do you support that in principle?
There's talk, perhaps, of a trade deal, which could be a way of keeping
do you
away.
support the idea of retaliatory tariffs, which is what some of the European countries are talking about?
Europe together, I think, unfortunately, in this kind of trade war that we have, there has to be an element of that. And there are very few levers that the UK has. And to anybody thinking that maybe this trade deal that may or may not be coming in the next few weeks will involve some sort of altruism gift by Donald Trump to the UK, he's not into altruism. He's not into altruism. He wants America to win and everybody else to lose. And we have to be very, very clear who our friends are.
No, he doesn't care about...
Surely at this time it has to be our friends in the...
He doesn't care about America winning. He wants Trump to win. He doesn't give a fuck about America. He's shown that. If he did, he'd have like, he literally this week he got rid of one of the few things that that Biden did really well, which was he capped overdraft fees at $5, and Trump got rid of that. Can any Trumpist tell me how that benefits the average American?
Yep, or the negotiation on Medicare prices.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
prices.
like literally just selling the American people down the river for his corporate bosses. Like that's what he cares about. Trump winning. He wants Trump to look good and strong. Trump was in his element yesterday because the world was watching. Was at the center of the stage. Trump wants the attention, he wants the clout, and he wants to be thought of as the leader. And he
For me, I think there were trillions knocked off the NASDAQ this morning. Goldman Sachs has come out and said 35% chance of recession in America as a result of this. It's a very fluid situation. And I think if we jump very quickly, we could jump the wrong way.
Okay, and the man next to you.
My main point would be that Mim's here nodding her head about certain points people are making in the audience, but the only thing you've said is that we should pander to Donald Trump. And there are alternatives to that. You nod that we have to decide a policy direction, but you only speak about one. There are alternatives being presented on the panel, but as the gentleman to my right said to me, there is a need for a discussion about these things. And we need to not just say, we have this relationship with America, we need to just follow that and hope it all goes well. We do have a relationship with Europe, and that is an option.
Okay, Chris. What should the UK government do to protect
a weird American Northern Irish accented man is correct.
our industries and avoid more economic problems?
Well, I think the single most important thing was what was just referred to by the gentleman, which is I don't think we should be jumping around all over the place in a very fluid situation. I think we need to be as cool as cucumbers. I think, of course, I mean, the previous government negotiated a terrible deal with the European Union, and we've got to reset that relationship because that trade is important. I think Mim's basically just said that they failed to negotiate a deal with the United States. That was the sum total of what she said. And we need to do better. So I think
we need to do something.
We have met both in the previous administration since we came to power in last July and with the new administration as fast as we possibly can. We've had very good discussions, but we should think of this as the start of a process, not the end of a process. And of course, we want to get to a good trade deal. But I think it's a matter for calm rather than for simply shouting off and getting things off our chest.
But just staying calm itself is not it's not a policy. Like, I agree, you should stay calm. I don't want you being mental and flying off the handle. That doesn't help. But you have to be calm and then do something in a calm way. But you're not doing that. You're just saying, "Oh, we're going to be calm."
Yeah, sitting there twiddling your thumbs whilst the meteorite heads for Earth, going, "It's fine, I'm calm, super calm." I'm like, "Well, no, you have to have a plan. You have to do something. Like, you actually have to have some kind of coherent strategy."
Yeah, the keep calm was followed by the carry on bit. You're supposed to do stuff. The calmness isn't the end goal. Calmness is the beginning of the process.
I simply think it will be irresponsible in the extreme to say we've got to choose either Europe or the United States of America. We want to trade with both.
Okay.
Right, but America are making it damn near impossible to do that.
They specifically don't want it. They want to break us away from Europe. They have been explicit in that. I mean, they literally helped do it. It's Cambridge Analytica, the same people who helped Trump, who helped Brexit. It's it's a whole project by these people to essentially turn the UK into a vassal state, totally separate from Europe. This is the whole Scott Bessent plan with the way they've done these tariffs and the way they've engaged with us since Brexit. You do have to choose. If we choose Europe, America will no longer choose us, and they won't allow us to have that relationship. And you know what? That's fucking fine. America can go fuck themselves if they're going to be a child about it. We had a situation before where we had reasonable trade agreements with both America and Europe. Trump's come along and said we have to choose one. And why the fuck are we going to go fucking begging bowl in hand to the person who's put us in the situation in the first place, rather than the people who were sitting there doing nothing wrong in the first place?
And of course, why would you go and cut a deal with Trump knowing that the next day someone else will speak to him and that deal will be fucking useless?
Yeah, literally, the guy changed his fucking mind quicker than anyone else.
Like, he'll say 1 second, 20% tariffs, and then Shinebaum will ring him up and go, "Shiny, look at the shiny keys, shiny," and all of a sudden they're gone.
Yeah, and
also ironically, she does play a blinder.
Yeah, true. And David in chat is very correct in that if we allow ourselves to become a US vassal state for trade purposes and cut ourselves off from Europe, that also cuts us off from fucking China as well, which is a giant market.
Yeah,
it makes no sense. At no point in any of this does unilaterally aligning ourselves with the United States make any sense at all.
Yeah, why attach ourselves to the sinking ship of the American empire and cut ourselves off from the country that are about to replace them?
Well, let's talk about steel, because the man there, hang on just one second, the man there, let's get his question answered. The man there mentioned steel, and of course we've got Port Talbot, which is not very far from here, run by Tata Steel. They're saying they've been running at a loss pretty much since they opened it. Lots of job losses, 2,500 at least job losses with the closing of the blast furnace. There's now an electric arc furnace being built, and there's now 25% tariff on steel and aluminium going to the States. What is the future of steel in this country now? Is there an argument now for nationalising steel, for weapons production or whatever else it might be? Or should we just reconcile ourselves to the fact there's going to be a tariff and people are going to lose their jobs?
We're talking specifically more about Scunthorpe at this stage.
Well, there's Scunthorpe as
is
well.
in discussion for nationalisation now.
But also that there's clearly there could well be an issue around Port Talbot as well.
Well, first of all, we've got to do things around the workers who have been employed already and have already lost their jobs and are moving on to other jobs, and that's why I'm glad that we were able to negotiate a deal and put the money in, which wasn't previously.
So being directly asked, is there an argument for nationalisation? The Labour minister will now ramble and not answer that he hates nationalisation.
Yep. Another reminder that the Reform UK Thatcherite morass, headed up by a commodities broker and a property developer, have both said that we should nationalise British steel. That's the Thatcherite Party, and here is the representative of the Social Democratic Labour Party, in inverted commas. Please, you have the floor.
Yeah, this honestly fucking hurts.
Available, £80 million, I think, and we've been able to announce another £3 million for mental health issues, which a lot of people are needing to address in that community
Chris,
at the moment.
Labour missed the vote completely on Port Talbot. Plaid Cymru put forward proposals, say, look at everything, including nationalising. Surely, for the Welsh economy, for those communities, for the strategic interest of the UK, surely look at all the possibilities, including nationalisation. Now the blast furnaces have gone. They have gone forever. And Labour was sleeping.
I just wonder if the government's position is changing, because Jonathan Reynolds was asked about it 3 times today. Did he rule out nationalisation? And conspicuously,
I think we've got to keep everything on the table as we consider what happens to an industry which is absolutely vital. I've always argued that we need to be able to make virgin steel in this country, because that's important for our armed forces. And as we look forward to the result of what we're saying about increased spending in MOD, it may be that these are the kinds of issues that we need to address. But I always get slightly worried when the immediate instinct is just to have a banner headline of nationalisation, as if...
Surely virgin steel is when Darren Grimes gets done for shoplifting.
True.
Nationalisation will always sort things out. I'm not sure that is necessarily the right route. When you look at how many people are employed in different sectors
is pathetic,
in the UK,
isn't it?
you've got to assess all of those different sectors. As it happens, creative industries, which I'm responsible for, 1 in 12 people in the UK now work in the creative industries, which far eclipses many of our other industries. We need to protect them all. I'm glad that we've been... And I really wish that we'd come to power before last July, because there was a time...
Office. You've said this several times now. Office. Fucking stop.
At the beginning of last year, when real intervention could have saved all of those jobs in Port Talbot.
But the electric arc furnaces are coming in this summer. I was in Port Talbot not that long ago. It's on its way. The new dawn is coming. There was a deal that Kemi, my boss, negotiated.
Sorry, the arc furnaces are not coming this summer. They're coming in about 5 years' time.
The start of the build of them.
And in the meantime, we are going to pour steel in from India and China. And we're about to close our last 2 blast furnaces in Scunthorpe. And we're talking about Trump and tariffs here. And they're all connected. And I'm going to play devil's advocate a bit here. What Trump is trying to do, and I don't...
It's so funny that she's called Sheffield, and yet she's trying to kill the steel industry.
Agree with the way he's doing it. But believe you me, the tariffs on steel are not what has been wrecking our steel industry for the last 30 years.
It's Thatcher!
It's neoliberalism.
Oh!
It's fucking neoliberalism.
Quite literally.
Trump is trying to boost onshoring. He knows their manufacturing base has been hit
It's crazy also that before 1980 we had loads of state investment into these critical industries. Some of them were publicly owned, some of them aren't publicly owned, some of them had subsidy. We had industrial strategy to make sure that key strategic assets were owned by the state so we could maintain our sourcing of these products that were important for security reasons. And then in the 1980s, they all just got sold off into private companies, and now we have no steel left. It's a mystery how we got here.
Yeah. And true, we haven't even looked at the kind of English angle of this. She's interested in Scunthorpe, doesn't give a fuck about Port Talbot, never gave a fuck about Grangemouth. It's only when it affects English people that the government give a fuck at this point, you know? I wonder the only fucking place that's got any support for Labour going forward is London, because it's the only place they're willing to invest anything. Literally, the one piece of investment they're going to do is a fucking another tunnel under the Thames. I don't want to go into it again, but I want there to be loads of investment in London as well. But there just have to be something north of Watford at some point. Fuck's sake, we're not even going to be Alabama soon. We're going to be fucking, I don't even know, Caribbean island or something. You know,
really hard, and lots of communities have been hit really hard, just like Port Talbot has. And I'd just like to say at this point, my heart goes out to the 2,500 men and women who lost their jobs, and many of them are having severe mental health problems at the moment on the back of that. And what he wants is better paid jobs. He wants to incentivise domestically produced.
Which also I think Donald Trump wants to bring back manufacturing. Like, where's the industrial strategy? Literally, you have to do industrial strategic investment if you're going to tariff that industry. And they've scrapped it. How there was billions of dollars being put into new manufacturing jobs via the Inflation Reduction Act and the Chips and Science Act, etc., etc. And what did Donald Trump do day one when he got into office? He cancelled them via executive order.
Yep.
He's literally doing the opposite of bringing manufacturing jobs back. Because also, a bunch of the stuff that needs to get into the country to make those manufacturing jobs, they're all now going to get fucking tariffed.
Yeah, exactly. Look, it's an awful vicious circle now. Fucking hell. Right.
And on the back of that, drive economic growth.
But Emily,
now,
if I might just very briefly...
No, because you've spoken a lot, actually, and so let's let me speak for a bit. Now, I don't tariffs. It's a really blunt instrument. But I think there are lots of communities in this country who can agree that since China really came on as an economic power since 2001, many big companies, global companies, have offshored labour, offshored manufacturing, offshored industry, and in the meantime, which has meant that our own industries, our own jobs have got absolutely kicked to hell, steel being one.
Who sold everything to China?
So, there's a very important point that if these particular industries were owned by the state or the workers themselves, they wouldn't have sold those jobs to China. That's capitalism, baby.
Yeah, exactly. You can't say you support capitalism and be doing your little protectionism. And it's fake protectionism anyway, because she doesn't actually support this. She just wants to appear to be on the side of working people. It's the Tory shell game.
One of those. Now, we have not helped in this country because, and I can see the unions nodding here, we've not helped our industries in this country. In the lead up to 2010, we lost 2 million manufacturing jobs in the space of 8 years. Now, I'm not blaming it on Blair.
800,000 jobs.
I'm not blaming that on Blair. But what Trump is trying to do is...
She still hasn't been asked. We are like halfway through the show, and she has not been called upon by the host to speak yet.
Saying that maybe the offshoring, that globalization has not worked for everybody. It certainly has not worked for the steel industry, and the 2,500 people have just lost their jobs. The other 2,000 are about to lose their jobs in Scunthorpe. Cheap Chinese steel has been swamping our market. So before we chuck everything at Trump and saying everything he's doing is completely wrong, well, actually, I think the sentiment of a lot of what he is saying, we need a bit of that in this country. Instead, what we're doing at a time of our steel industry has been at its absolute weakest, driven by the EU, which I know lots of people in this audience think the EU is the absolute bee's knees. But do you know what they did? They put huge carbon levies on our steel industry.
Oh,
Scunthorpe over the next 3 years would have paid 450 million in carbon levies to the Treasury.
Okay, let me bring Siobhan in.
That is what is killing our
Siobhan, do you...
Okay.
Do you agree with anything that Emily is saying there? I mean, even if...
There is a green steel you can make green steel, by the way. It's not just electric arc furnaces and recycling old steel. There is iron ore electrolysis. You can fire blast furnaces with hydrogen rather than coal. Like, there is ways of doing this to create green steel. This is why the industrial strategy is important and why public ownership is important. So you can justify putting that money in, so you don't have to pay for carbon levies, and you have virgin steel that's being created in this country, and you can keep the jobs in-house and they don't go overseas. This is why we should be nationalising it.
The UK doesn't like the tariffs imposed on us as a nation. Trump's got a point.
Look, America first doesn't mean Britain first. That's not how this game is going to be played at all. It is important that we talk about the workers that have lost their jobs. We also need to think about the supply chains and all the local businesses as well that ultimately end up in a lose-lose situation. I think the UK has got a choice. We have got a choice because we can help some of those traditional industries transition, or we can continue to lose jobs, ultimately.
And this is the point, right? Tariffs can work if you do it properly and it's targeted specifically, whereas Trump's just gone hog wild with it. 20% across the board, 40% for you, this, that, and the other. Even for industries that, like I say, they don't grow coffee. So what industry is being protected there? It's just stupid, xenophobic rubbish at that point.
And we're talking, actually, when it comes to those manufacturing, high-carbon manufacturing jobs, we're talking about 800,000 jobs in that industry. So we need to be investing in decarbonisation. That's been so slow. It is unbelievable. We need to invest in UK manufacturing. We need to decarbonise. But ultimately, we also then have to remember, and I know the reform was mentioned earlier on, Nigel Farage was out campaigning for Trump. He said that his personal close relationship was somehow going to help us out. Well, it hasn't worked so far.
He would claim that if he was in government, it would help. I mean, you know, he's not here to answer that. That, I'm sure, is what he would say.
We're reliant on, you know, importing foreign imports and really relying on that to create jobs. I think it's time for us to be proud as a nation, and we need to be proud as Britain. But
Hey there, if you enjoyed the video, make sure that you like and leave a comment. That helps the video out in the algorithm. If you subscribe and ring the bell, it'll let you know when I go live. I stream every day on YouTube and Twitch. You can also follow all of my socials down in the description. And if you want to support me in a more financial manner, there's a join button for memberships. It's just 99p to be a member on YouTube, as well as a Patreon, and there's some merch there as well. And hopefully I'll catch you on the next video. Take care.